grab a snack. We're going to be here for a minute. Hey everyone, it's Mary. Welcome back to my channel. You can hear my dog rattling. Hey buddy! He's rattling. Anyway, we're finally going to talk about all the books I read in the second quarter of 2022. I'm calling it Q2, which is, you know, how I refer to quarters at work. So if you've never heard it referred to as Q2, it's nerdy of me. But it's okay. We're going to talk about all the books I read in the second quarter of 2022. I read a lot of books in April. I did not read a lot of books in May and June. But I mean, it's like 20 plus books. How many books is it? 16? Like 22 books, I think we're going to talk through today. So grab a snack, grab a snacky snack. We're going to be here for a minute. There's a lot to talk through. I read mostly ebooks too because 'twas a busy second quarter and I didn't really read a lot of physical books. And again, I apologize because my little buddy back here is rattling. Baby boy! What are you doing? What are you doing over there? Look at him. Hi, buddy. What are you doing? Hey, bud. I don't know what he's doing. Okay, let's carry on. Let me get my camera situated. Grab a snack. I got my snack. Let's go. The first book I read back in April was Taken by the Sinner by Michelle Hurd. I ended up giving this book 2 stars. So it starts off with Tess, who is a young college student. Her mother is widowed, and her mother tells her she's in love and wants to get remarried. So she goes to this dinner to meet the man her mother's going to marry. And while she's there, she meets this man's son. Finds out that this dude is like in the mafia. He's the former godfather of the Greek mafia, and the son is now in charge. And the son is a jerk. Did not like him at all. And decides to be a controlling idiot and like tell her that now that your family is marrying into the mafia, we're controlling your life. We're controlling your money. We're going to tell you what to do. Oh, and by the way, you're not going to get a job with your college degree like you think you're going to do because we're going to marry you off in an arranged marriage. And then later in the book, he's like, I'm the arranged marriage. And I'm like, you're a jerk. I wanted to like this book. Y'all know I love mafia. And I don't think I've read a lot of books by Michelle Hurd. I think I've read her in the past. I think I've read her books in the past. I don't remember. But I did not like the man in this book. Like, the girl was a little bit naive and stupid. And the dude was a jerk. So I couldn't get into it. And I apologize. I gave it 2 stars. Next book I read was Arisen by J.R. Ward. I've been reading this series forever. I mean, I think I've been reading her books for like, 20 years it feels like? I don't know. It's more than 10. This is book 20 of the Black Dagger Brotherhood. It's the story of Balthazar and Erica. Now, I wasn't super excited about this book. Like, I don't know. I didn't really feel super connected prior to this book. I liked their love story. I gave it 4 stars. It's a good continuation of the series. But I gotta be honest, the Black Dagger Brotherhood series is so like in-depth and has been going on for so long that at this point, if you tried to jump into the series at book 20, there's a lot that you would miss. I mean, I think you could still read the book. But I think at this point, the reason why I'm still reading the books is because I've literally been reading this series for like a good chunk of my adult life, and I love the series. But, like, I don't know that a lot of stuff would make sense if you hadn't been reading it, like, forever. So, I don't know. Next book is supposed to be an audiobook, which is Darius' story. We'll see how that goes. Looking forward to it. The next book I read was Toxic by Maggie Cole. This is the first book in the New York Mafia Wars series. And this is the story of Dante and Bridget. Bridget is the wife of Sean from the previous series, and you got to hear from it, like, kind of what happened between her and Sean and everything, and how Sean got murdered in the last book of the Mafia Wars, which was Relentless Hunter? Whatever the last book was. And you got to finally hear what happened to Sean, and this book is, like, kind of going through part of that book and telling Bridget's story, what happened from her point of view. Dante is actually a guy that she was in love with before she met Sean. And he was playing this whole, like, I like you, I want to be with you, but I'm pushing you away, and then I love you, but I'm going to put... He did this back and forth, And then finally she meets Sean and she falls in love with Sean and ends up marrying Sean and kind of loses touch with Dante. And then this is them all these years later rekindling their romance. So it's a second chance romance. It's Mafia. And it's the first book of the Mafia Wars, of the New York Mafia Wars series. And I actually really loved this one. The next book I read was Only Work, No Play by Cora Reilly. I have never read anything outside of Cora's Mafia series. So I wanted to read something that wasn't Mafia related. This one was a sports-themed romance. I'm not usually a huge fan of sports. The guy is a rugby star and the woman is his personal assistant. And basically, the dude is a big man-ho who can't keep it in his pants. And he sleeps with everybody, including his personal assistants. So they decide to hire him a new personal assistant who is not his type. So essentially, she's like an overweight American who's bossy, that they hired to be. You can see the problems with this. Thinking that there's no way he'll fall in love with her or want to sleep with her because she's not his type because she's overweight. But of course, it's a romance, so they do. They end up in bed together and they end up in a relationship. Now, it had a nice happily ever after ending, but I was kind of like, oh, she's fat, so he can't love her because she's fat. Gee, thanks. Appreciate it. I gave this one 3 stars because it was okay. I just thought that the fat personal assistant thing was kind of like not okay. The next book I read was the Bratva's Triplets by Bella King, I think. Yes, Bella King. I gave this one 3 stars. This was another book that was okay, but not my favorite. And in this book you have Audrey. I think it's Audrey, who is a lawyer and goes to this bar to get information about a case that she's working on, and she meets Vasya, who's obviously like part of the mafia, because you know it's a mafia book. And they meet each other at the bar. He ends up asking her to look into stuff for him for like something that he needs legal help with. They get hot and heavy in the bar. And then the dude gets, some other dude, I don't remember, it was April when I read this. Some other dude gets footage of them getting it on in his office and decides to use it as like blackmail. Like, you won't use this information against me in my case because I have footage of you screwing my brother in his office, kind of thing. And then he goes after her illegally, and then she finds out she's pregnant. It reads kind of like a soap opera. Like, it was really good and it kept you interested, but it read a little bit like a daytime soap opera. So I was kind of like, I like it, but it's a little much. And I do think that the guy was a little bit of a jerk in this book as well. So I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. The next 4 books I'm not going to go into too much detail with. I will like slowly filter through these. I read the rest of the Family series by Katrina Jackson. I read the first one, was it last year or beginning of this year? I can't remember. And it's her Mafia series, which is a really unique one because it takes place in Italy, which is you don't get a whole lot of. And then the second one is it's interracial. So usually when you get Mafia romances, you get a whole bunch of like white folks in the, because I mean it's like Irish, Russian, or like Italian, which Italian, you know, sometimes you get a little bit of a mixture in the Italian Mafia stories, but this is the first like actual interracial Mafia series that I found. If there's another one, let me know, because I'd love to read more diverse Mafia romances. So this is the next several books. So I'm gonna read them off to you. I read The Hitman, which I gave 4 stars to. The Enforcer, I gave 3 stars to. Dolce, I gave 2 stars. That one was basically a smut book. There was very little plot. And then the next one is The Dawn. I gave that one 3 stars. So overall, I really did like this Mafia series. I think sometimes the market's a little oversaturated with Mafia, and then it just kind of all blurs. But like, I liked the series. The reason I gave these ones a little bit lower stars is because this is definitely more on the like erotic side of romance. There is a lot of banging that goes on in these books, to the point where like the Dolce book, I don't feel like there was much plot. Like, they literally spent 90% of that story in bed. And I was like, where's the story? They're just screwing. Like, give me a story here. And I didn't care for it. So, and honestly, I would have DNF'd the whole series, except I was trying to get to The Dawn, because in the very first book, you find out that the girl is pregnant, and she doesn't actually meet back up with the dude until this sixth, the dawn, whatever number that book is, and then you find out what happens, and then he finds out she's pregnant and all that. So I was like trying to get through the series because I wanted to get to the part where like they end up back together. And I was just like, if it wasn't for that, I mean, probably would have DNF'd it, not because I dislike it, but it definitely fell out of my comfort zone. It was a lot of sex scenes, and I typically will not read a book that's that graphic. So, not my cup of tea. Next book I read was Ghost by Daphne Loveling. This is part of the Lords of Carnage MC series. I was trying to read some different MCs because the only MC books I've really read are the Giana Darling ones, and I wanted to kind of read other versions of MC to see if I liked him, which I'm finding I really kind of don't. This one's a little bit different. This one surprised me. I gave it 4.5 stars, and the two characters in this book knew each other when they were younger. And in this book, it starts off with Giana coming back into town after falling on hard times. She has a young son who's like, I think 4 in the book. And she comes back home because she needs help, and her brother's part of the MC. So her brother's like, let me get you a job at the bar, where she sees Ghost. And Ghost and her years ago she had a crush on him. He sort of had feelings for her. They didn't act on him. Had a one-night stand, which resulted in her son. You can see where it's going here. And now she's back in town with this son that Ghost doesn't know exists, and she's working this job. So they see each other. Emotions are rekindled. He finds out about his son, and the story goes from there. Now, this is a plot we've read 1.5 million times. I've seen it done different ways. But this book, it was done really, really well. The emotions were there. There were parts of the book where, like, I got a little verklempt because she really brought in the emotional impact of everything that went on the last few years. And I thought it was really well done. Now, do I love the MC part of this to keep reading the series? I don't know. I might pick up the next book and just check it out. But I really loved this one, and I would actually recommend it even if you don't like MC. I think it was just really well done. So 4.5 stars. Loved it. Hey guys, we're back. It's another day, another location. I apologize because you're getting like a weird purplish glare off of my glasses because I have those computer glasses. So I apologize. I have a window behind me and a fan above me. So it was terrible lighting, but that's okay. It is a new day. I did have a couple of things that popped up and I had to step away from recording. So it is the next day and my doggy is sleeping on the bed behind me. He's so cute. Look at this baby. Hi, buddy. You snoozing? Okay, good night, buddy. Anyway, let's carry on with my list of books. We're still in April, and the next 2 books I read are both from Aria. It is Heir for the Bratva King and Queen for the Bratva King. And both are mafia books, of course. Makes sense. And they are a duet. I picked these up because I saw the first one, I think, advertised on a Facebook ad, which is why I picked it up. And I was pleasantly surprised. I gave the first book 5 stars, the second book 4 stars. Really, really enjoyed them. So the story is of Dennis and Avery, and Dennis is obviously the leader of the Bratva, and Avery is a preschool teacher, and she is actually teaching Dennis's son, Misha, in the preschool, and Misha starts talking about, like, killings and witnessing someone be hurt, and she's like, what is this kid seeing at home? It sounds like he's in a dangerous situation. She knows that Dennis is involved in like some kind of crime business, but doesn't quite understand that it's the mafia. And so she calls CPS and has Misha removed from the home. So Dennis retaliates by kidnapping Avery and basically trying to force her into rescinding what she sent to CPS and help him get his child back. And in the process, they end up forming a relationship. She begins to realize that like there's more to Dennis than she thought. They are attracted to each other. She learns about what happened to like Misha's mother and Dennis's first wife and all of that, and they fall in love. And then the second book in the series, or I should say the duet, is the continuation of their love story, and it is when basically this long lost unknown brother of Dennis comes along and tries to fight for his right to rule the Bratva. So there's this whole story of like this brother and all the fighting. It's more mafia based and secret baby trope involved in this one, which is not really that secret because it's on the back of the book. So some of that. But just so you know that I guess a little soap opera-ish, I guess is the word I'm looking for. The second book's a little soap opera-ish, which is why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. But I actually really enjoyed this duet, and I think there's other books that are part of like a series that go with this duet, so I need to look that up because I would probably read them. I really enjoyed these ones. The next book is a little bit taboo. I picked it up because a person that I know in real life recommended this book, and I was like, it's a little weird for me, but I'll check it out. And it was called Her Dad's Best Friend by Kate Hunt. Now you can already tell by the title what the taboo-ish is, and I was like, I'm really not going to like this book. But in this story, it was actually really well done. So the daughter in this book is 26 years old, so she's a consenting adult. She's not like a child, like an 18-year-old that some dude falls in love with. And the best friend is like 41 or 42. They were friends from the neighborhood growing up, but her dad's like up in his 50s, and this friend's like younger 40s. So then when you are together, I'm like, okay, it's like a 15-year age gap. It's not as creepy as like an 18-year-old girl dating a guy in his 50s, which is a little weird. So this one I really liked. And basically the dad is out of town, and Avery ends up getting into a car accident or gets hit or whatever, and her car is damaged, so she has no way to get to work. And he says, hey, let me call my old friend from the neighborhood, have him come take you to work. And that's how the two of them meet, and they fall in love. So it has a taboo title, but when you actually get into the book, it's really not as taboo as you think it is. It's still a little bit weird because it's still his friend that his daughter is dating, but like the age gap creepiness of an age gap is not there. So I really appreciated that, and I liked this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was pretty good. Next book I read is Her Famous Billionaire by Emily Evans. And this one was just okay. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't that it was a bad book. It's just there wasn't anything that really stood out about this book to me. So in the story, you have Emery, who works in an art gallery, and she's very pleasantly surprised when her ex-boyfriend's brother, Elliot, comes through to buy artwork from the gallery. And they rekindle a friendship that existed back when she was dating his brother. And apparently they both had feelings for each other at the time she was dating his brother, but didn't act on them, obviously, because she was dating the brother. So it was just kind of like a second chance romance, pretty straightforward. It was like they met at the gallery and then they went on a date, and like, but it wasn't anything that was like super interesting. So like I didn't feel like I wanted to finish the book. I was like, oh, they're gonna end up together at the end. It seems pretty straightforward, but also wasn't bad. It was an easy read. It's a simple read. It would be a good, like, I just want something simple I don't have to really think about too hard kind of read. So it was okay, and I gave it 3 stars. Next book I read was Scarred Hero by Hope Ford. I really enjoyed this one. I gave this one 5 stars. This one was excellent. It is a short story, like novella linked story. And the main character of this book was in Afghanistan, I believe it was. Yeah, he was in Afghanistan. He was scarred after being in the war. He was obviously part of like a bomb that went off, and so he has scarring all over his body. And people are kind of scared of him and don't like to really look at him because he looks so disfigured from his injuries. So he goes out to a bar with some friends who rope him into, like, you need to get out of the house, you need to socialize more, and we know you don't like to, but we're taking you out to the bar. And he ends up meeting, I'm trying to remember her name is. I'm looking at my notes. Oh, her name is Hope. So there you go. Hope and Hope. Anyway, her name is Hope, and she starts talking to him at the bar. Shows like she's really interested in him, which kind of throws him off guard because he's like, are you really interested in me, or are you just feeling sorry for me because of my scars? Well, they end up, I forget what happens to her, but I think she like gets to like some kind of like guys hitting on her on the bar, guys disrespecting her at the bar, something of that nature. And he's like, let me give you a ride home. And they kind of hit it off from there. But I really liked this one. It was very short, but the emotions were good. The PTSD that he has was good. And actually her intentions for him were very pure, and she really did like him for himself. So I thought it was really well done. Not a very long story. Very, very good. And I gave it 5 stars because I thought it was excellently done. And the very last book I read for April was Brood of Vows by J.T. Geissinger. Don't know how to say her name, but I gave this one 5 stars. This was the story of Spider, who we met in the previous stories, and Raina. And I loved this one because Spider is actually like promised to a younger girl. I can't remember what branch of what these are. There's so many different branches of mafia and organizations in here that I cannot tell you who did what. But he was promised to a young girl, and this young girl's aunt is Raina. And basically, Reina is known as like the Black Widow because there's rumors of her possibly killing her husband, but no one can prove it. That sort of thing. She was in a very abusive marriage, a very, very twisted, dark marriage. And, you know, she has this Black Widow sort of persona amongst the rest of the community. And when her and Spider meet each other, they immediately are attracted. Like, the sparks fly. Their banter is hilarious. They kind of have this like hate, like, I hate you and I would like to kill you, but I also want to sleep with you kind of thing going on. And Reina finds out that her niece, who is promised to marry Spider, is actually in love with a local boy. And she doesn't want to marry him, and she's, I'm so in love, and you know how it is when the young kids are. And so Reina, in order to, you know, save her niece from the fate that she had, was being forced into a marriage she didn't want to be a part of, she ends up deciding to take her place and to marry Spider instead. And so it's the story of them ending up together and them falling in love. And I love all of her books. I don't think I've read anything by this author that I have given less than 5 stars, because I absolutely love her writing style. I love the strength of her characters. She writes really strong kick-butt female characters, and the dialogue and the banter is just fabulous. So I really enjoyed it. This was the last book in the series. I don't know what this author has in the plans for the next series or next line of books that she writes, but I will definitely check them out because I love her writing. On to the month of May. I only read 2 books in the month of May, so this will be short to get through. The first one was Ferrara by T.L Swan. I've been waiting for this book for a while. This is a follow-up to The Italian. Loved that book when I read it. This one was good. It wasn't as good as The Italian. I don't know if it's because my expectations were too high for it, or if I just really didn't like it. But this one I ended up giving 4 stars to, and it is tied to The Italian, but it's also different enough from The Italian that if you haven't read that book, you could read this one and still be okay, because the author recaps things and makes sure that you understand the backstory. So in this one, you have Giuliano and Francesca, who are young lovers. They, you know, Francesca comes from basically like a higher up mafia family, and Giuliano is considered poor when he's younger. He doesn't know who he is. They fall off with each other, and they find out a secret about each other and about their families that tears them apart. And so this is the story of them as adults finding their way back to each other and uncovering all the family secrets and all of the things that were kind of hiding in closets in the family, and finding answers that wraps up not only the storyline from The Italian, but really puts a wonderful like exclamation point on the relationship between the two of them. The reason why I didn't give this one 5 stars was because I think that it's a little bit too not believable, and also just soap opera-ish. I keep saying that in this video. I've said this to like 3 books, but like sometimes I think that the plot lines can just be so complicated that you feel like you're watching Days of Our Lives or something, because it's like this person is actually this person and this person is not dead. They're actually alive and they've been in hiding for 10 years. And you're like, the storylines just get crazy. And I think that's why for me, it just was like, I like it, but I mean, it was a wild ride. It was a fun ride. But sometimes, like, it's a little much. Can we tone it down and be a little more realistic with the story, with the storyline? But I still gave it 4 stars. I really do like T.L Swan, and she has a couple other like series that I'm getting ready to start here, so I'm looking forward to checking those out. Next one is The Billionaire's Beauty by Ava Ryan. I gave this one 4 stars. This one is an office romance, and you know I'm a sucker for office romances. So you have Bellamy, who is a personal assistant to Griffin and keeps him in line and like keeps all his crap together. He is difficult to work for and he doesn't like very many people, but he is used to Bellamy keeping him in line. And finally, she admits to herself that like, I'm in love with him. He doesn't know I exist. I'm pining after this man that I'll never have. And I'm being held back in my career opportunities. So she ends up applying to another job that's across the country. And the moment that she does, Griffin realizes like, oh no, I have feelings for this person, and their relationship goes from there. So pretty straightforward. I really enjoyed it. Gave it 4 stars. Well written, good emotional depth to it. Not a very long book either, which I always appreciate a nice short read. So I enjoyed this one. And those are the only 2 books I read for the month of May. And for the month of June, here we go finally. My first book I read for the month of June was Immoral by Maggie Cole. This was the next book in her New York Mafia Wars series. I gave this one 4 stars. This is the story of Gianni, who is the twin of Dante from the first book, and of the woman he's been in love with for years, Cora. And Cora and Gianni have been in love since they were children. They all met around the same time that Dante and Bridget met. And he has loved her off and on for years, but they have this like, we're together and then we break up, we're together and then we break up, we're together again and then we break up. And they never stay together. Number one, because Gianni is not willing to admit his emotions to anybody, and also because Cora is scared of the mafia lifestyle. So those two things combined, they never really allow themselves to open up for each other. But Cora, however you say her name, ends up getting involved in a rival mafia family unknowingly at the time. She dates a guy who's part of this like rival mafia family, and they realize that she had a past relationship with Gianni, and things go south very quickly in that relationship, and she is being harmed by this other mafia guy. So Gianni comes in to save the day, and in doing so, he marries her as a way to save her from the other mafia family. And then they have to finally, like, we're married to each other, so we're going to have to admit our emotions and figure this out. And so that is how the story goes. It was very well done. You know, I will say that I do this particular series is definitely a little bit more like erotic than the first one. At least I feel like it is. It's like coming out with a bang, and I don't know that I love that. I love the stories, but I'm having a hard time getting through some of the more naughtier bits of the book. So I'm kind of going back and forth on whether do I want to continue the series or not, because I enjoy the books, but they're just a little outside of my comfort zone. So I don't know. I may try to do some skimming because I'm trying to read the next book in the series, but I don't know, guys. Second book I read was Vicious Promise by M. James, and this one was actually really good. I gave this one 5 stars as well. It's a story of Luca and Sophia. It's an arranged marriage. Sophia is like this wild child from another mafia family who he thinks is just like a big hoe bag because she's always seen out partying. But the truth is that Sophia is actually like a very kind-hearted person and has been raised very sheltered. And so he mistreats her based on this persona that she allowed to be put out into the world about herself and on social media. That's not really her. And so they have a very rocky start to their marriage. But then as he gets to know her and begins to realize that like she's not who I thought she was, and then she begins to realize he's not mean like I thought he was. He reacted the way he reacted to me because of past experiences with his own mother. Then you start to see the two of them come together in like a decent marriage. So I enjoyed this one. I thought it was one of the better mafia romances I have read in a while. So I gave it 5 stars. Third book I read was Filthy King by Serena Akeroyd. I gave this one 4 stars. You know, I can't really say much about this one unless you've read the whole series, because really the next 2 books are wrapping up the whole Filthy Feckers series for her. And I was looking forward to this one. This is the continuation where, spoiler alert, Aiden Sr. has passed away and Aiden Jr. is now taking up his mantle as leader of the Irish Mafia. And so this is the book where you really see him come to that point. You see the fallout from what happened in the last book with, you know, some secrets that came out about Aoife and I can't remember her name, the mother of all the brothers. And then, of course, Aiden Sr. dies at the end of that book. So this is a continuation of everything that's happened after his passing. And it also sets up the relationship between Connor and Star, which is the next book in the series. So I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed the book. I did feel like this one had too many multiple points of views for me, and that it wasn't so much about the love story between Aiden and Savannah. It was a continuation of the love story. It was more so like just a whole lot of sex scenes about their relationship, and then more so the side plots. That's not a bad thing, because again, you're wrapping up a series, but it wasn't as much romance as I prefer. But it was still a really good book. I mean, Serena Akeroyd writes a book that you can't put down. I mean, every book I've read, you can't put the book down. You got to keep reading it. So she's very talented that way. Fourth book I read for June was Dangerous Temptation by Giana Darling. I wanted to check out something from Giana Darling that was not part of the MC world that she created. This one is very taboo again. I think that she just writes taboo romances. I don't really know her that well, but I'm pretty sure that's just what she writes. This one, I didn't love it. So I gave it 3.5 stars because it was entertaining and I wanted to read it, but I really didn't like the characters. So you have Tiernan, who's at the beginning of the book dating Bianca's mother. And at the time he's dating her because he knows some secrets about Bianca and her brother, her younger brother, that they don't even know themselves, and that basically their father, their father and the mother were not married. She was the mistress. They're the children of the mistress, and that their biological father is a member of the rival like mafia family. And so I think it's mafia. They never flat say it's mafia, but it's a crime family. So I'm thinking it's got to be mafia. So then Tiernan, sweeps the mama off her feet. And lo and behold, the mother dies of I don't remember if it's an aneurysm or a heart defect. She dies into her 40s. So she's young. And these children are left with no one. They have no family. Their father's already dead. They have no one to lean on. And so Tiernan fights to take custody of the children. So he has guardianship of the children and then starts a relationship with Bianca, who is 17. If she had been a college student, 19 or 20, I wouldn't have been as freaked out. She's 17 and you're her guardian. You can see why I was bothered by that. This is a couple books now I've read from her that have very underage girls in relationships with older men, and I don't like it because I think Tiernan's 30 something, 33 or 31, and she's 17. I was not okay with it. Yeah, I didn't like that. So that, I think, shadowed the whole book. Now, outside of that, I actually really enjoyed this story, especially when it started uncovering the secrets of the family and what happened to Tiernan's past. Literally, if Giana Darling had made this character, the female character, 19 or 20, this would have probably been a 5-star book for me. But I cannot get past the people that are writing books about underage girls. And maybe it's a cultural thing because I know that some countries that's a legal age. And I know that I think in Canada you can be 16 or 17 and it's considered an illegal age of consent. But where I'm from, look, I remember being 17. I was naive and stupid. I was not smart at 17. So for me to think of a 17-year-old girl in a relationship with a man who's in his 30s, it's nasty. To me, it's nasty. Maybe, hey, if it's you, I'm not knocking you. I don't yuck anybody's yum, but I think it's nasty, and so I was not okay with it. So that's why this book got 3.5 stars. Otherwise, it would have been a 5-star read for me. And the very last book I read, I'm not going to go very in-depth with because I'm actually going to do a whole separate video about it, and that is I read By Virtue I Fall by Cora Reilly, and I gave this one 4.5 stars. I will go into a lot more detail about this in a separate video, but I will say this. There are definitely some problems with this book that I did not love, but overall, I enjoyed this story. I liked it a lot better than By Sin I Rise Part 1 and Part 2. This is it's a much better installment of the Sins of the Fathers series, and I really liked the relationship. If I have to, without going into too much detail, which I'll go on the separate video, if I'm nitpicky about a few things, is that Anna was a little bit naive and bitchy. Didn't care for her personality all that much. I hated the age gap in the middle because all of a sudden there was this 3-year age gap that just happens. Instead of telling us what happened in 3 years, it's they end up in bed together and then 3 years later. And I'm no, I hate time jumps. I called it an age gap, but it's a time jump. Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say here. And I did not like the time jump. And I also felt like Anna was very reckless with Santino's life. She, oh, my father finds out we're together, he'll kill you. And she was yeah, it's fine. I'm if you love the guy, that shouldn't be fine. So anyways, I'll give more details in a separate video, but I did give this one 4.5 stars. I enjoyed it. I do think it's a step in the right direction. I'm a little nervous about Amo and Greta's book. Not gonna lie, a little bit nervous because I'm looking forward to the Next Generation Cora Chronicles children's and the first few books we've had in this series. I'm kind of like, they're okay, but you know, maybe our expectations are too high. I don't really know, but we'll see what happens. So those are all the books I read in Q2 of 2022. It's a lot. This was a long video. I hope you guys don't mind the long video. And let me know what your favorite book you've read in April, May, or June was. I'd like to know. Leave me a comment below. Tell me what it was. Tell me all about it. I'd love to check it out. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.